There are two kinds of invisible. There's the kind where people don't see you because you're not there. And then there's the kind where you're standing right in front of them, and they look straight through you anyway. I lived the second kind for 27 years. I watched my parents build a shrine to my older brother while I became wallpaper in my own home. I stopped asking why. I stopped trying to compete. I just left. Built a life they never asked about. And then one night my phone rang. My mother's voice was shaking. Everything had fallen apart. And the son they never needed was suddenly the only one who could save them. Welcome to my Reddit diaries, where every story reveals the unseen battles within families. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Growing up, I learned that love in my house wasn't distributed equally. It was earned. Or at least, that's what I told myself when I was trying to make sense of why my brother Daniel got the standing ovations while I got the polite nods. We were only 3 years apart, but we might as well have lived in different universes. Same parents. Same house. Different realities. Daniel was the kind of kid parents brag about at dinner parties. Captain of the basketball team. On a roll every semester. The kind of smile that made teachers love him and coaches push him harder. He had this energy, this confidence that filled every room he walked into. People gravitated toward him. My parents orbited around him like he was the sun. I was quieter. I liked books more than sports. I spent my weekends writing stories and learning guitar. I wasn't bad at school, I pulled A's and B's, but I wasn't Daniel. And in our house, not being Daniel meant you were always going to be second. I remember being 10 years old at the kitchen table, showing my mom a short story I'd written for English class. My teacher had written, "exceptional work," at the top in red ink. I was so proud. My mom glanced at it, smiled, and said, "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Then the phone rang. It was Daniel's basketball coach. He'd scored 30 points in a game. My mom spent the next 20 minutes on the phone, laughing and congratulating him. My story stayed on the table. She never read past the first page. That same year, I entered the school science fair. I built this elaborate model of the solar system with working lights and a motorized rotation. It took me weeks. I won second place. I was thrilled. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They were at Daniel's regional basketball tournament 2 hours away. When I got home that night, I showed them my ribbon. My dad said, "Second place, that's great, buddy." Then he turned to Daniel. "Show him your trophy." Daniel had one. They took a picture of him holding it. They framed it. My ribbon went into my desk drawer. I never took it out again. It wasn't that they were cruel. They weren't. They loved me. I know they did. But their love felt like an afterthought. Like I was the bonus child they hadn't planned to focus on. Every accomplishment I had was measured against Daniel's. Every milestone was smaller because he'd already done it better. When I was 16, I got accepted into a summer creative writing program at a university 3 states away. It was competitive. Hundreds of kids applied. Only 30 got in. I was one of them. I showed my parents the acceptance letter at dinner. My mom hugged me and said, "We're so proud of you, honey." Then she turned to my dad. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Daniel got offered a full-ride scholarship to state. Can you believe it?" The rest of dinner was about Daniel. About his future. His opportunities. What this meant for the family. I sat there, smiling, nodding, holding that acceptance letter in my lap like it didn't matter. By the time I was 18, I'd stopped expecting them to show up. I stopped inviting them to things. It hurt less that way. I went to college 4 hours from home. I studied English and creative writing. I made friends. I found professors who saw something in me. I started to build a version of myself that existed outside of Daniel's shadow. It felt like breathing for the first time. When I graduated, my parents didn't come. Daniel was moving into his first apartment after landing a corporate job in the city. They were helping him. My mom called me that night. "We're so sorry we couldn't make it, honey. You understand, right? Daniel needed us." I said I understood. I did. I always understood. That was the problem. I moved to another city. I got a job as a freelance writer, then a content editor, and eventually I started publishing my own work. I wrote essays, short stories, got a book deal for a memoir I'd been working on. It wasn't fame. It wasn't fortune. But it was mine. And it was enough. My parents didn't ask much about it. When I called home, the conversations were surface level. "How's work?" "Good." "That's great. Your brother just got promoted again. He's thinking about buying a house." I'd congratulate them. Hang up. Feel that familiar ache. And then I'd go back to my life. Years passed like that. Calls became shorter. Visits became holidays only. I watched my parents age through photos Daniel posted online. I saw him get married. Saw their pride radiating through every comment they left. I was happy for him. Truly. But I'd stopped waiting for my turn in the spotlight. I'd stopped needing it. And then, 5 years after I'd left, my phone rang at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I almost didn't answer. It was my mom. She never called this late. I picked up. Mom? Everything okay? Her voice was shaking. She was crying. I'd never heard her cry like that before. We need you. Please. It's your father. And Daniel. Everything's falling apart. I don't know what to do. I didn't know who else to call. My heart stopped. What happened? She tried to explain through tears. My father had a stroke. He was home now, but he couldn't work. The medical bills were crushing them. And Daniel had been running my father's business and he'd made decisions, bad ones, and now there were lawsuits and debts and everything was collapsing. Please, she said. I know we haven't been there for you the way we should have. I know that. But I'm asking you now. Please come home. I sat there in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the wall. The people who'd never needed me before were calling now. The parents who'd missed every moment that mattered to me were asking me to drop everything and save them. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to remind her of every science fair, every recital, every graduation they'd missed. Part of me wanted to ask where this energy was when I needed them. But I didn't say any of that. I said, I'll be there tomorrow. Because despite everything, despite the years of feeling invisible, they were still my parents. And whatever I'd become, whoever I was now, I wasn't the kind of person who walked away when people were drowning. Even if those people had let me drown for years. I booked a flight that night, packed a bag, stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror and wondered what I was walking into. I didn't know it yet, but going home wasn't going to be about them. It was going to be about me. About facing the pain I'd buried. About deciding what kind of man I wanted to be when the people who hurt me needed me most. The flight left at 6 in the morning. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, thinking about the boy I used to be. The one who wanted so desperately to be seen. And I wondered if that boy would recognize the man I'd become. A man who was strong enough to help people who'd never helped him. Or maybe just foolish enough to try. The house looked the same from the outside. Same white shutters. Same oak tree in the front yard where Daniel and I used to climb as kids. Same driveway where Dad taught Daniel how to change a tire while I watched from the porch because I was too young, he said. I stood there for a moment before walking up to the door, and I realized I felt like a stranger coming home to a place that was never really mine. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen her. Her hair had more gray. Her eyes had dark circles. She pulled me into a hug and I felt her body shake. Thank God you're here. I stepped inside. The house smelled like old coffee and something medicinal. The energy was wrong. Heavy. The kind of silence that only exists when people have run out of words to fight with. Where's Dad? In the bedroom. He doesn't come out much. He's embarrassed. About everything. I walked down the hallway. The walls were still covered with photos. Daniel's basketball trophies. His wedding picture. His college graduation. There was one picture of me. Middle school. Awkward smile. Tucked in the corner near the bathroom. I knocked on my parents' bedroom door. My mom opened it slowly. My father was sitting in a chair by the window, staring out at nothing. His left side drooped. His hand rested limply in his lap. He looked smaller, fragile. When he turned to look at me, I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Shame. Hey, Dad. He nodded, tried to smile. His speech was slurred. You came. Of course I came. He looked away. Didn't think you would. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just sat down on the edge of the bed and asked him how he was feeling. He gave me the basics. Stroke 3 months ago. Left side weak. Speech therapy twice a week. Doctor said he'd improve but it would take time. He couldn't work. Couldn't drive. Couldn't do any of the things that made him feel like himself. And then he said, Daniel was supposed to handle the business. That's when my mother told me everything. My father had spent 30 years building a small construction consulting firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Reliable. He'd always planned to pass it on to Daniel. 2 years ago he did. Daniel took over operations. My father stepped back, started planning for retirement. At first, Daniel did well. He was charismatic. Clients liked him. But then he started making changes. Big changes. He took on contracts that were too risky. He expanded too fast. He borrowed money against the business to fund projects that fell through. He hired friends instead of qualified people. He made promises he couldn't keep. When my father had the stroke, everything collapsed. Projects were unfinished. Clients were furious. Vendors were threatening lawsuits. The business my father had spent 3 decades building was drowning in debt. And Daniel, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, had destroyed it in less than 2 years. Where is he now? I asked. My mother hesitated. Upstairs. In the guest room. He moved back in 4 months ago. His wife kicked him out. She said she couldn't trust him anymore. He's been drinking. He won't talk to us. He just stays up there. I felt something twist in my chest. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Just sadness. For all of us. I went upstairs. Knocked on the guest room door. No answer. I opened it anyway. Daniel was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He looked like a different person. His face was unshaven. His eyes were red. There were empty beer bottles on the nightstand. He glanced at me and then looked away. So they called you? Yeah. Here to gloat. I closed the door behind me. Sat down in the chair by the desk. No. He laughed bitterly. Sure. The overlooked son gets to come home and save the day. Must feel good. It doesn't. He sat up. Looked at me with something between anger and desperation. You don't know what it's like. You never did. Everyone expected me to be perfect. Dad handed me the business like it was some gift, but it was a test. And I failed. I failed him. I failed everyone. You made mistakes, I said. That doesn't mean you're a failure. Don't do that. Don't be the bigger person. I know you hate me. I took a breath. I don't hate you, Daniel. I never did. I was hurt. There's a difference. He shook his head. Rubbed his face with his hands. You were always the smart one. You just left. You built your own thing. I stayed. I tried to be what they wanted. And I couldn't do it. For the first time in my life, I saw my brother clearly. Not as the golden child. Not as the favorite. Just as a man who'd been crushed under the weight of expectations he never asked for. I'm not here to judge you, I said. I'm here because they need help. And whether you believe it or not, so do you. He didn't respond. Just stared at the floor. I left the room. Went back downstairs. My mother was waiting in the kitchen. She looked at me with desperate hope. Can you help us? I didn't answer right away. I thought about all the times they'd looked past me. All the moments they'd chosen Daniel. All the years I'd spent wondering if I'd ever be enough. But then I thought about my father sitting in that chair, broken and ashamed. I thought about my mother, exhausted and drowning. I thought about Daniel upstairs, suffocating in his own failure. And I realized something. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. About the kind of person I wanted to be. About whether I'd let bitterness define me or whether I'd choose something better. I'll help, I said. Over the next few weeks, I did everything I could. Called the bank. Negotiated payment plans. I contacted creditors and set up meetings. I paid off the most urgent medical bills with my own savings. I hired a physical therapist to come to the house 3 times a week. I coordinated Dad's medications. I sat with him when he got frustrated and wanted to give up. I took over the bills. I organized paperwork that hadn't been touched in months. I spent hours on the phone cleaning up the business mess Daniel had left behind. My mother cried when I paid for the mortgage one month. She said, I don't know how to thank you. I told her she didn't have to. But Daniel didn't make it easy. He barely spoke to me. When he did, it was defensive. Hostile. He'd make comments. Small jabs. Must be nice to finally be the hero. Or, don't worry, I'm sure they'll put your picture on the wall now. I didn't take the bait. I just kept working. One night, about a month after I'd been home, I was sitting with my father. He was doing better. His speech was clearer. He could move his arm a little more. We were watching an old Western on TV when he turned to me. I'm sorry. I looked at him. For what? For everything. For not seeing you. I should have. You were right there. And I missed it. His voice broke. And for the first time in my life, I saw my father cry. I didn't know what to say. So I just put my hand on his shoulder. And I told him it was okay. That we'd figure it out. But that night, Daniel came home drunk. He stumbled into the living room where I was sitting alone. He stood in the doorway, swaying slightly, and he looked at me with red, furious eyes. You love this, don't you? Being the hero. You were always jealous of me. Now you get to swoop in and show everyone how great you are while I'm the failure. I stood up slowly. I was never jealous of you, Daniel. I was hurt. There's a difference. But I didn't come here to win. I came here because they needed me. And whether you believe it or not, so do you. He stepped closer. His voice was venomous. I don't need you. I don't need anyone. Yes, you do. You're drowning, and you won't let anyone throw you a rope. He shoved me. Not hard. Just enough to make a point. Stay out of my life. Then he stormed out. Slammed the door. I heard his car start. Heard him peel out of the driveway. My mother came downstairs, frantic. Should we call someone? I shook my head. He needs to figure this out himself. But later that night, I sat in the dark. And I wondered if helping people who didn't want to be helped was just another way of hurting myself. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. I'm sorry. I need help. I don't know what to do. I stared at that message for a long time. And then I texted back. I'm here. We'll figure it out. Daniel checked into rehab 2 days after that text. It wasn't a dramatic intervention. It wasn't some tearful family moment. He just looked at me over breakfast and said, I need to go somewhere. I can't do this alone. I made the calls. Found a place an hour away. Drove him there myself. When we pulled up to the facility, he sat in the passenger's seat staring at the building like it was a prison. He didn't move for a full minute. Then he turned to me. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're my brother. I treated you like garbage. For years." "I know. So why?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. The golden child who'd carried the weight of perfection until it crushed him. "Because holding on to anger would hurt me more than it would ever hurt you. And I don't want to carry that anymore." He nodded, got out of the car, walked inside. I watched him go. And for the first time in my life, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the possibility of it. The next 3 months were hard. Rehab wasn't a magic fix. Daniel called sometimes. His voice was raw, honest in a way I'd never heard before. He talked about the pressure, about how he'd spent his entire life trying to be the person our parents wanted him to be and never figured out who he actually was. He talked about the drinking, the mistakes, the shame that ate at him every day. I listened. I didn't offer advice. I just let him talk. At home, things were slowly changing. My father was making progress. His physical therapist was tough on him, pushed him harder than he wanted to be pushed. But it was working. He could walk with a cane now. His speech was almost back to normal. He started sitting at the kitchen table again instead of hiding in his room. One morning, I was making coffee when he came in and sat down. He watched me for a moment. Then he said, "I read your book." I turned around. "What?" "Your memoir. The one you published 2 years ago. Your mother had a copy. I read it last week." I didn't know what to say. I'd never thought he'd even heard about it, let alone read it. "You wrote about us," he said. "About growing up. About how we made you feel." "Yeah." He was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know. I mean, I knew we focused on Daniel, but I didn't realize how much we missed. How much we hurt you. I sat down across from him. "You weren't trying to hurt me. I know that. But we did. Intent doesn't erase impact. I learned that in therapy." He looked down at his hands. "I spent so much time trying to make Daniel into something that I forgot you needed me to. And by the time I realized it, you were gone. You built a whole life without us. And you did it well. You became someone incredible. And I missed all of it." His eyes were wet. My father, the man who never cried, was crying in front of me. "I'm proud of you. I should have said that 20 years ago. I should have been at your graduations and your book signings and every moment that mattered to you. I wasn't. And I'm sorry." I reached across the table and put my hand on his. "I forgive you." He looked up at me, surprised. "Just like that. Just like that. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life angry. And because you're here now. That matters." My mother started making more effort too. She called me every few days. Not because there was a crisis. Just to talk. To ask about my writing. About my life. She told me about her own regrets. About how she'd always worried less about me because I seemed so capable, so independent. She thought I didn't need her the way Daniel did. "But everyone needs their mother," she said. I should have known that. I should have been there. I told her the same thing I told my father. I forgave her. Because holding on to resentment wasn't protecting me. It was just keeping me chained to the past. When Daniel got out of rehab, he looked different. Healthier. He'd gained a little weight. He smiled when he saw us waiting in the parking lot. A real smile. Not the performative one I'd seen my whole life. He moved back into the guest room, but this time it was different. He started going to AA meetings. He got a job at a local hardware store. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that would make our parents brag at dinner parties. But it was honest work. And he showed up every day. One evening, we sat on the back porch together. Just the two of us. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple. He was drinking coffee. I had a beer. "I don't know how to be around you," he said. "What do you mean?" "I spent my whole life being the favorite. The one everyone looked at. And I resented you for being free of it. But you weren't free. You were just invisible. And that's worse." I didn't say anything. "I'm sorry," he said. "For all of it. For not standing up for you. For not seeing you. For making everything a competition you didn't even want to be in. I appreciate that." He looked at me. "Do you think we can start over? Like actually start over? As brothers. Not as rivals." I thought about it. About the years of hurt. About the resentment I'd carried. And then I thought about who I wanted to be. "Yeah, I think we can." He nodded. And for the first time in our lives, we sat together in comfortable silence. Two brothers. Finally on the same side. Months passed. My father got strong enough to go on walks around the neighborhood. My mother started volunteering at the library. Daniel reconnected with his wife. They started couples counseling. It was slow. Fragile. But it was something. I went back to my city eventually. But I came home more often. For birthdays. For Sunday dinners. For no reason at all. One afternoon, I was visiting and my father asked me to take a drive with him. We ended up at the cemetery where his father was buried. We stood in front of the headstone. My father stared at it for a long time. My father was a hard man, he said. Nothing I did was ever good enough. I swore I'd be different, but I just repeated the same patterns in a different way. I pushed Daniel because I thought that's what fathers did. And I ignored you because you didn't seem to need pushing. It turned to me. But everyone needs to be seen. And I didn't see you. I'm sorry for that. We all carry things forward from our parents, I said. But we can also choose what to let go of. He nodded, put his hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you. Not because of what you've accomplished, but because of who you are. You're a better man than I ever was. I learned from you, I said. The good and the bad. We stood there for a while. Then we drove home. People ask me now if I regret helping them. If I regret giving so much to people who gave me so little for so long. And the truth is no. Not even a little. Because holding on to bitterness would have poisoned me, not them. And choosing grace wasn't about letting them off the hook. It was about freeing myself from the weight of anger I didn't want to carry anymore. My parents failed me. My brother took what should have been shared. But I learned something they never taught me. That love without scorekeeping is the rarest kind of strength. I didn't save them to prove I was better. I saved them because I was strong enough to be kind when I had every reason not to be. And that's something no one can ever take from me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't success. It's becoming the person they couldn't see you were all along. And letting them finally see it. Not because you need their approval anymore, but because you've made peace with who you are. In the end, I didn't just help them survive. I learned to forgive. And that freed us all. I closed the door to my childhood home one last time before heading back to my city. I hugged my parents, shook Daniel's hand, got in my car. And as I drove away, I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel resentful. I just felt whole. And that was more than enough. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to my Reddit diaries for more real stories about family, forgiveness, and finding yourself. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose between holding a grudge or choosing grace? I read every single one. And remember, wherever you are in the world, whatever battle you're fighting, you're not alone. I'll see you in the next story.